Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. As always, I am David Farkas. I'm joined by Josh Lehrer.
Hey, everybody.
Producing the show, we've got Jose Rivera.
Hello, hello.
And we are back with another exciting episode. What are we talking about tonight, Josh?
Well, the highly anticipated episode today is about the new Leica Q3.
One of those.
Which is two of these.
Two of those.
Which is, I would say, the most hyped product from Leica in quite some time. Maybe it matches the M11, which was quite significant. Maybe it exceeds it. It's tough to say. But this episode is all about the new Leica Q3. So we've got a bunch of questions that we got already. I'm sure we're getting a bunch more in the chat. We've got tons of stuff to talk about. We have testing. We have some of David's not testing, but actual pictures.
Actual pictures.
And we have, I just lowered the chair by accident.
Oh.
Yep, there we go. We have all kinds
now
of,
you're too tall.
hold on. All kinds of cool things to show you.
Yes.
So I think we should start the way we do when a lot of new products come out, which is, David, can you give us a little bit of backstory, a little bit of history?
Sure.
Where the Q system started and how we got to where we are now with the Q3.
For sure. So I'm going to abbreviate the very beginning part because it is somewhat of a long, winding story involving the X series and its many iterations, and even harking back to the original Leica Digilux 2, which I think is kind of a spiritual successor.
We're getting real deep cuts now. Okay.
Real deep cuts, guys.
I like it.
But it eventually, all of those iterations and all of those, I don't want to say experiments, but all those generations of cameras and feedback from customers and ideas from Leica of where they wanted to go brought them to the original Leica Q, which was called the Q Type 116. And that was introduced in summer of 2015. It was pretty groundbreaking because up until then, what was considered a large format sensor, larger sensor all-in-one camera was always, say, like the X system, an APS sensor, which is a 1.5 crop. But that's considered a pretty big sensor for an all-in-one compact. And Leica just shattered that by coming out with the Q, which was a full-frame, integrated camera with an incredible lens attached. Not just any lens, but this 28 Summilux that we still use to this day because it really is that good.
Yeah.
And why did they go 28? There was discussion about, well, people's phones, especially at that time, were 28 millimeter. And that's what people were used to taking for general purpose. It also is really practical street photography, focal length, and just general purpose. The idea being that you could always just crop a little bit if you didn't want something as wide as 28, but you couldn't make something like a 35 or 50 wider because you can only step back so much, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right. So that's where we landed on the 28, and they gave us an f1.7 for great low light ability, great subject separation, and also this really cool ability to have very close macro mode at the turn of a dial. And that, this combination of things, also building in a high resolution at the time. Remember, this is 2015, and they came out with a 3.68 megapixel EVF in this small little body. So we have built-in electronic viewfinder, modern everything, a touch screen, Wi-Fi, great lens, great sensor in this one kind of compact little body. Of course, with autofocus and auto aperture and all the good things. And I heard it on, let's say, good authority from Leica that this was sort of an experiment. They thought this was going to be a niche camera where they were going to sell 5,000 or 6,000. That was the total projected run of the Q because they were basing those numbers on what they'd done with the X system in years prior. And I guess also with the T system and the TL and the CL. And well, actually the CL hadn't come out yet.
Right.
So the TL.
The TL, yeah.
The TL.
Yep. And
it just smashed through all their expectations. They ended up selling 10 times the amount of Qs that they initially budgeted, somewhere in the 60,000 plus range of units sold.
Yeah, they were hard to get for several years, which is very unusual for a production Leica product like that.
They just completely misestimated the demand for it. I mean, tenfold.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. And when we look at it now, it seems very obvious because it just hits all the right notes. You know, it's great quality in a small, easy to carry package. Anybody can use it. It's simple yet advanced enough with manual controls, and you'll show all that. In that it suits everyone from just someone who's a casual photographer all the way to someone who's, you know, an absolute serious professional. And it changed the game. And now we have.
Well, so that's the Q. Then what came after the Q?
Well, we actually have slides. For this.
We have
If
slides.
you would like to show it.
No, that's all right. I mean, I think
You could. Here. Well, we should show what the original looked like.
I have it right here.
Okay.
Well, what's funny is what I love is all the Qs are lined up here, and unless
hard
you
to
look,
tell.
you
It's
really
so hard
can't
to
tell
tell.
which one is which, and that's really a testament to the staying power of
Oh my gosh.
the
yes.
original Q. Sure, there's been tweaks to some of the buttons, and obviously lots of changes inside, but fundamentally, the original Q and the Q3 have more in common than they have different because
Yeah, that's true.
the camera's core concept of being a full frame fixed lens point and shoot camera with a very, very, very nice 28-1.7 lens
Yeah.
hasn't changed in the last 8 years.
Right.
So-
the core concept is
Yeah,
the same.
yeah.
It's just these generational improvements.
Of course, yeah, we've seen improvements all across the board, but I just like that. And that's kind of, I guess, what Leica is really known for when you think about the M system, right? Which is the same
sure.
idea, which
Right.
has been the same core concept for the last 70 years.
It's an optical rangefinder system with an M mount.
yeah.
And essentially, I mean, you can watch, we have episodes on everything from our 15 years of digital M to our analog M episode. There's a lot of it, when you line up analog M's, it's that same kind of feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you really have to oh, okay, that's that one. You have to really look at it
Yeah.
because I guess the family resemblance is so strong.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
Jose, you want to
runs
pull
through
up
the
the
whole
Q slide? Just so
we
we can
go.
have that. So this is the original Q.
That is not the original Q.
No, I'm holding it in my, it's not the right view.
Hold on. Let's come back to us and Jose can get us the right camera.
Yeah. So this is I'm holding the original Q, but I want the slide so they can see the specs.
Yeah.
I
I think it's on our close-up camera, Jose.
yeah.
The front one.
It's out of the right here.
No, not that one. The other one. The other close-up camera, Josh. We have too many cameras. Is there
On
such
the
as this
overhead?
one? No, the front one.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Nope.
Well, that front camera's not ready, so
The front camera, not the overhead.
you can see we only do shows once a month. We're like,
A
it's
little rusty. A little rusty.
so rusty. Just go to the overhead then. Or yeah, there we go. Okay, look, there we go.
There it is.
Original Q. This one is obviously pretty well used.
I prefer well-loved.
Yeah. But anyway, this is
Give an overview here.
you can see this is the original button layout, quite a bit different than how things are now. This is that button that still activates the sort of digital crop modes, and that was a big feature for the Q. From the top, very similar. Of course, the lens, this part, has not changed since the original Q. So the Q2 and the Q3 all share the same lens, and the top similar. They've added some buttons, but really fundamentally, the cameras have not changed. The sizes are very similar. Of course, the Q has a battery door, which the Q2 and the Q3 do not. That was a big changeover and something Leica is doing across the board, slowly but surely. Getting rid of the battery door. So this is the original Q. But Jose, do you want to put up the slide?
Well, the slide only works with the front view.
No.
Yeah, you just have to, Jose, if you move the close-up camera into position, then we're okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Anyway, well,
there we go. We're on the move.
we're
on
getting
the
there.
move.
Let me grab a Q2 while we're on the topic. Okay, put the Q here. They all look the same, so I have to be very careful.
You got to be careful.
So after the original Q, we got away from the type 11 blah blah naming designation that Leica tried for a short time, and now we're back to numbers again. So
Yes.
now we have the Q2, which was the successor to the Q type 116.
Well, technically, they didn't break anything because it was always the Q. And we
True.
got the Q2. So
Right,
it wasn't like
right,
we got some weird
right.
Q multi
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
So the original Q, or sometimes called the Q116, Q type 116, or just the Q.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
You may.
There was also some important variations.
Which we talk more about in our
Right.
Q system episodes. We probably shouldn't get down. We don't want to get too far down here.
But the QP also was...
Yeah, there was the QP
the
and
116.
a lot of good content on Red Dot Forum
Yeah.
and past episodes after that. Anyway, so we saw the Q2 in 2019. That was...
And here, I think we're good to
Here we
go
go.
now.
That was a huge launch. New sensor, weather and depth sealing, new button layout that matched the other cameras in the lineup at the time, new viewfinder, electronic shutter. I mean, it was...
Yeah, significant.
I can't remember all the other changes, but if I had the slide, I would know.
You would know. You would know. So the
It's a lot.
Yeah. So I think the viewfinder. There you go. So the viewfinder resolution stayed the same at 3.68.
Oh, it did. I'm sorry. Right. I'm sorry. But the screen is better.
Right. So that's the original Q. Let's go to the Q2. And the Q2 changed to an OLED EVF,
that's
which
what it was,
really made a big difference. I think if you look on early Qs, the viewfinder, like the yellows, would be a little desaturated. Certainly the color accuracy and fidelity was much improved on the OLED. We got a new battery, the BP SEL4.
This one's labeled with the date, so forgive me.
It is.
Pretty new, as you can see.
We also upped it from full HD or 1080p recording to 4K video recording. And the weather sealing, I think, was a pretty big one. So we got the sensor with almost double the resolution, 95% more resolution. And we got the weather sealing and the new battery.
And two customizable buttons as well. So let's go to the reason you're all here, which is the Q3. There she is. So this came out just last month. It is as new can get. And...
Well, not that one.
What do you mean? Well, this one, yeah. Well, so both of our demo, store demo Q3s have been used by people who clearly...
Wasn't just me.
Yeah. So forgive me, but they're very well used. Anyway, so we just saw the Q3 come out last month, and the highlight features you can see here. So 60 megapixel backside illuminated sensor, brand new 5.76 megapixel OLED EVF, so the same resolution we see in the SL2 and the SL2S, 8K video, also weather sealed, and a new battery as well, although it looks the same. It has wireless charging capability. It has ISO max of 100,000. We've got another big change, which is...
the tilting screen.
Here we go. Well, two other big changes. We got ports, we got a screen, but I'm going to cover that in a minute. So anyway, Q3, game-changing. But what I want to do now, you can come back to us, Jose.
Yeah.
Is talk a little bit more in depth about the differences between the Q2 and the Q3. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cover the physical changes between the two cameras. Then we're going to toss it over to David, and David is going to cover the internal changes, all the different features inside. We've got then images to show, testing real world images. We've got a bunch of accessories, and of course, we're going to answer questions as well. But we want to give everybody who's watching, assuming most people don't have their Q3s yet, I would guess, a real clear understanding about the changes between the two cameras. So
but don't worry, you can watch this later on when you have your Q3 in front of you.
After you get your Q3.
After you get it.
Okay. We can do the overhead like this, I think.
Sure.
Would that work?
Maybe move a little to the side.
Let me get some junk out of here.
There we go. Make some space. Make some space.
Okay.
Make some room. Make some room.
There we go.
I like that.
Okay. Let's go to the top down. All right, so we have here the Q2 and the Q3. You can see the lens is, of course, exactly the same. The top plate of the cameras is pretty much exactly the same. The one big change you can see is the Q3 now has a threaded shutter release button, which is something we've seen on the M's for a very long time. And this does allow you to accommodate a soft release. But otherwise, I mean, this has a hot shoe cover. Let's take that off. Okay, there we go. Otherwise, two cameras are pretty much the same, except one says Q3. If we were to look at the fronts, there's even less to discuss. Essentially identical. I would have a hard time, without really looking closely, picking out the Q2 from the Q3 in the wild.
We do have a hard time.
Yeah. If we go to the bottom, we can see that the bottom is almost exactly the same. The memory card door has like a little cutout on the Q3 versus the straight door on the Q2. And we see something important here, which is these little electronic contacts. And what these allow you to do is when you attach the Q3 hand grip, you can actually charge the camera wirelessly using a Qi charger. So Leica offers one, but any Qi compatible charger will work. So instead of having to remove the battery from the camera, throw it in the charger, you just have the grip on, plop the camera onto your wireless charging pad, and it will charge, which is really, really convenient.
It is.
So that's
we'll show the
We'll get there,
accessories,
yeah. That's really the key change on the bottom. On this side, they're exactly the same. You can see here. Then the other big change is on this side. You can see there is now a port on the Q3 This has a USB-C and an HDMI Type D port. USB-C is going to allow you to charge the camera over USB-C, including with a portable power bank, which is very cool. It's something we have on the M11. It also allows you to tether the camera to a phone, tablet, or computer. The HDMI port is going to allow you to use an external recorder or display content on an external screen. So
Yeah, like a Atomos Ninja.
yes, so the ports are a major, major new addition to the camera. So now we show the backs. I have to do them sideways here. I'm going to try to mitigate some reflections. There we go. You can see this is where we see, in my opinion, the most significant changes. The entire interface has been redesigned. The screen is now tilting, and I will show that in a moment. All of the buttons have been relocated to the right, and there is now 2 custom function buttons here as opposed to 1. So we have 1 extra button here. All the menu play buttons have been relocated over here. And most importantly, the screen can tilt like so. I'm just going to try to show this mechanism here as best I can. You can also tilt it down. So kind of like, so if you're shooting low, you can see down. If you're shooting high, you can see underneath. So this is, try to like, here we go. There you go. You can see how that works. This is brand new for the Q3, and the mechanism is extremely sturdy. When you're feeling it, you can actually hold the camera by it if you felt so compelled. Leica hesitated for years to incorporate any type of articulating or flip out screen because they just weren't satisfied with the durability of what was available. And now they finally gotten to the point where they can say confidently that this will be it will match the camera's durability and be up to their standards. So if you don't want to use the tilt out screen, you just fold it back in the body. As soon as you want to use it, there's like a little sort of groove here, and there's one on the bottom. So you can just kind of stick your finger there and voila. So that is a really, really cool design change. The finder looks the same, although it definitely is not the same. The viewfinder is significantly improved. It's very, very close to the SL experience. Not quite as much eye relief, but it is
Not bad.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Coming from the Q2 or from the original Q. And now the center button here is also a function button on the Q3, which we didn't have on the Q2. And for me, the best part about the buttons being relocated to just one side of the camera means this can truly be operated with one hand. So, I mean, it depends on the size of your hands, but if you're holding the camera like this, you can now access all of the buttons, all of the custom function buttons, the shutter button, everything that matters with just your right hand. So if you're shooting overhead or way down, and you don't have the ability to have both hands on the camera, the revised button layout is actually, to me, a really nice benefit. So overall, a lot of physical changes that would be relatively subtle, the most significant being what we see on the back. But if you're familiar with the original Q or the Q2 and you pick up the Q3, it's not going to be difficult for you to get used to it. Yes, you'll have to kind of relearn a few buttons, but the advantage is now we have 4 custom buttons. On the Q2, we only had 2. We had the FN button here, and we had the button in the dial. On the Q3, we have 4 custom buttons. So we've got these 2 here, we've got the center button here, and we've got the button in the dial. So the way that these work is just like they do on like other cameras, where you simply just get it in focus. How do I look? Is that good, Jose?
Yeah, that's good.
Press and hold, and you can decide what function you want to be activated. David disappeared from the studio. He is now back. he went to go.
Don't worry about it.
Do a shot of vodka or something. So anyway, so that is the custom function button that they have added to the Q3. Weight-wise is almost exactly the same. I think it's a couple of grams heavier. I don't notice a difference. It feels like a Q camera. It doesn't feel foreign to me. Again, if you know the Q or the Q2, you're going to pick this up and you're just going to feel it home in your hands immediately. The first thing you're going to notice is the improved viewfinder and the articulating screen, and then the button layout. But once you get a feel for that, it's very natural to me. And certainly a lot of welcome changes, things we've been seeing gradually from Leica over time. like USB-C charging in the M11, and now we see it on the Q3, hopefully continuing that trend on future models. So overall, a nice experience. I do want to address a question that we got earlier while I'm on this close-up view. The question was, can you use a threaded cable release on the Q3? The answer is no. The shutter button, while it is threaded for a soft release, does not accommodate a cable release. So you can screw it in there, but it's just not designed in a way to actually work. So if you want to fire the camera wirelessly, or excuse me, without touching the shutter button, you would either use self-timer or the Photos app, either tethered or via the Wi-Fi connection. So there's no shutter release capability there, unfortunately. David, are you ready?
Did you go over the custom function buttons?
I did.
Yeah, okay. I need less than a minute.
David needs less than a minute. Well, Jose, while I'm in this view, are there any questions related to things I can show close up?
There you go.
That
Yes.
I can talk about.
Talk about physical
Let me
things.
see. Yeah, somebody was asking about the batteries, if they're the same.
Oh, yes. I can talk about the batteries now. I actually don't mind doing that.
And the
so-
charger.
Oh, and the hand grip.
Yeah, but let me do the batteries first. The Q2 shares a battery with the SL, SL2, SL2S, Q2 monochrome. That's the BP SCL4, right? Yes, right here. A battery we all know and love that costs $285. So the Q3, the battery looks exactly the same, and it in fact feels and handles exactly the same because it is the same dimensions. This is the BP SCL6. The difference here is that this battery has a 17% higher capacity. What that allows you to do is obviously get longer battery life in the Q3, also shoot, or it has enough capacity for the 8K video that the Q3 shoots. Questions we've been getting are, do Q2 batteries work in the Q3, and do Q3 batteries work in the Q2? The answer is yes. The Q2 batteries work in the Q3, except you do not have the ability to shoot 8K video. There's not enough power for that. So if you're not going to shoot 8K video, you can use your Q2 batteries in the Q3, no problem. Nice thing about the Q3 batteries is not only do they have more capacity, but they're $105 cheaper, at least in the US. These are $170 retail. So finally, something less expensive.
That's unusual from Leica, isn't it?
Extremely so, yes. Q3 batteries are backwards compatible. I don't believe there's official compatibility from Leica yet. They do have to do certifications for certain batteries to work in their cameras. So from what I understand, the batteries are not officially certified, but they work. I haven't had an issue. But just so you understand that there is going to be some time when Leica officially states like, yes, they work. The battery charger is exactly the same. The charger that comes with the Q2 and the SL2 is the same charger that comes with the Q3. It looks like this. We all know this one. There we go. So yeah, this is the same. So again, Q3 battery works backwards. Q2 battery works forwards, except you lose 8K video. The charger is the same. Of course, the other big battery-related advantages are the Q3's charging capabilities, which of course are not just charging by removing the battery, as I just did, but also charging via USB-C on the side, or by attaching the wireless charging hand grip. So what happens is you attach this to the camera, like so. There we go. Hard to do this upside down, forgive me.
Do it right side up then.
There we go. Okay.
I also want to just chime in.
Yes, please.
Having extensive use with the Q2 batteries and SL batteries, obviously. And these new batteries on the same charger, they are higher capacity. They take longer to charge. Like
Well said.
a lot longer to charge.
Okay, so once you have the wireless charging hand grip on the Q3, you plop it on your wireless charger, whether that's the one that Leica is offering, which is here. You can show the top-down view if you want. Nothing super exciting. It's got a nice little felt.
Fabric, yeah. Little
It
fabric.
says Leica.
Hey, look at that.
It has a USB-A port if you want to charge another device at the same time.
Or this.
Or it comes with a little power brick. Well, you need this anyway. So you plug this in here. It's actually a really nice quality. You know, it sits flush. This is metal. It's got a good weight to it. It really is beautifully designed. And this works with your phone and your AirPods and anything that's Qi compatible as well. So it's not just a Leica specific product. This is a wireless charger that works with a lot of different things and works really well with the Q3. So you just plop it on top like so. And I'll also address the question about the grip, which is people, they're seeing this little lip here on the grip and they're saying, oh, it must be, Arca Really Ride Stuff compatible like the M11 grip. It is not. It looks like it. This is just designed so the camera can stand up the wireless charging pad while it's being used. So unfortunately, we need to wait for Really Right Stuff to make a plate for this camera, because this does not work like that. It does have a tripod socket on the bottom, so you don't lose tripod capability, but it doesn't have ARCA compatibility. So 3 ways to charge a battery: in the charger, USB-C, or wirelessly via the wireless charging Handgrip.
Yeah,
I think I've talked enough.
I think so. All right, so we're going to talk about some of the
Internal changes.
internals.
Yes.
Do we want to bring up our little chart thing?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Here we go. Bring that up. So we've got, getting to the rundown here. Okay.
Gonna hydrate.
Definitely got to hydrate. I mean, this is tough stuff here, guys. There we go.
It's working up a sweat now.
Okay.
To the screen. There we go.
Ooh, that worked. That actually worked. That was like magic.
So
wow.
this is a handy dandy spreadsheet, David. Talk us through it.
Handy dandy thing. So let me zoom in a little bit here. A little bit more. Whoops. Actually, that was a little too much. A little too much. We're gonna zoom out a little bit. Where do we go? Nope. Sorry, one sec. There we go. Okay. So what we've got here is Q3 on the left, Q2 on the right. And if you can't read this, it's okay. I'll read it for you. The biggest fundamental change between the cameras internally, I think many could agree, is the sensor. So we've gone from a 47.3 megapixel CMOS sensor to the 60.3 megapixel BSI sensor, CMOS sensor, which is backside illuminated. Again, we've talked about this in the previous episodes, but backside illuminated does not mean that there's like a light on the back of the sensor shining through the lens. Like you can't use it as a flashlight. Backside illuminated is a little bit of a confusing term. It merely means that on a traditional sensor design, you have pixel wells on the front side, obviously, with a micro lens structure. The light comes through, goes into the photo wells, and needs to be processed because that light is measured as a electronic voltage. The voltage, which is analog, gets converted to a digital signal and then sent off the sensor. On a traditional sensor, those electronics, whether data converters or transistors, resistors, all the fun stuff, it's on the surface of the sensor, taking up valuable space that could be photosites. So a BSI sensor, they've moved those electronics to the backside of the sensor, backside, BS, and that makes more room on the front of the sensor for the actual pixel wells that are the photosensitive areas. Therefore, if you have two sensors that are exactly the same resolution, but one is a traditional CMOS design and one is a BSI CMOS design, you'll get notably more light sensitivity and vis-a-vis better low light performance and high ISO performance from the BSI sensor. And I think that's what we saw basically with, when we went from, say, the M10R at 40 megapixel to the M11 at 60 megapixel, which was the first use of the BSI sensor.
SL2S. SL2S.
Oh, SL2S. But that's not comparable because it's 24. But
Okay.
Anyway, let's say in the M line.
Okay.
Second time they used it.
There we go.
But first time they used 60 megapixel. Conventional wisdom would hold that if you're increasing the resolution by 50% from 40 to 60, you get worse low light performance. Except what we saw was the same or even slightly better performance because of that shift to BSI technology. And here we're seeing the same thing from the Q2 to the Q3. That's a big change. The other one is speed. So this is the first Leica camera now that has the Maestro 4 image processor in it. And prior to that, we used the Maestro 3 processor, which is what's used in the SL2 and SL2S as well. So this is a generational shift. And I'm sure moving forward, future cameras will feature the same Maestro 4. I don't think it offers any significant, let's say, magical low light ability. It just means it's faster and it's able to chug through those pixels faster. It's able to, let's say in a contrast detect autofocus system where it actually needs to read off the sensor to adjust the autofocus, that will be faster as well because it can do those calculations quicker. So what we expected to see is actually what we see, which we'll discuss, which is autofocus speed improvement between the Q2 and the Q3. mainly because of that Maestro processor. And then Josh already covered the electronic viewfinder. We've gone from a 3.68 megapixel OLED, which is very respectable, to the 5.7 something megapixel OLED EVF, 5.76. The ISO range has been expanded from 50 to 50,000 on the Q2 to 50 to 100,000 on the Q3, but we'll get into that. We still don't recommend shooting at 100,000.
Yeah.
And then because now the new sensor and the Maestro 4 processor allow for 8K video, it required a larger power supply. Therefore, we have the upgraded 2200 milliamp hour battery versus the old 1860.
Don't forget about the AF system. That's the biggest change.
Which one?
AF.
Oh, well, the AF.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
to me, that's the most important.
That actually is. That actually is. And you can come back to us. We're going to...
Yeah.
I don't... Then it's... Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
So,
big again.
Well, David, I'm going to ask you then. So,
Yes.
aside from the new sensor, which we would both, I think, agree is the most significant change,
Headlining feature.
what is the second most significant internal change in your mind for, as a still photographer between
Yes.
the Q2 and the Q3?
Well, it certainly bore out in my actual use of the camera.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that other people will chime in and say, oh, that's same for me. The game changer for me is the new hybrid autofocus system.
Okay. Explain that to us.
Up until now, and that includes all of Leica's autofocus live view systems, the SL601, SL2, SL2S, Q116, Q2, Q2 monochrome. All of those cameras featured a traditional contrast detect autofocus system. That means it uses the entire sensor, looks at a live view image, and it basically detects contrast. It uses, Leica actually uses technology from Panasonic called depth from defocus, DFD, to kind of use fuzzy logic to do predictive guessing of which way it should focus. And we've seen pretty good autofocus performance on the SL2 and SL2S for sure. Q2, certainly no slouch, but it could be fooled in some scenarios. Heavily backlit, a small subject that's against a busy background. These are always areas where autofocus tends to struggle. In a DSLR or even an SLR, going way back into the pre-digital times, cameras use something called phase detect autofocus. And on the SLRs and DSLRs, they'd actually have a separate sensor with a pellicle mirror or half mirror or whatever it is, and it would divert some of the light from the single lens reflex mirror. Instead of going into the viewfinder, it would go into the autofocus sensor, the phase detect sensor. And that is an optical calculation versus a live view pixel calculation. It tends to be historically higher performance and certainly more accurate. But it's been a challenge to incorporate that onto a live view system without diverting some of the light and whatever. We have seen occasional cameras from other manufacturers incorporating this hybrid technology, and now, I don't know how, maybe they beg, borrow, steal, whatever, but now we see that same hybrid, both contrast detect, which technically is more accurate than phase detect.
You just said phase detect was more accurate.
So phase detect is faster.
You misspoke there.
Sorry, I
Just
misspoke.
so nobody calls him out.
Sorry.
You just misspoke.
Phase detection is faster.
Yes.
Contrast detect is more accurate.
Okay.
Let me
Good.
clarify
That's all. I
that.
just want to clarify
Okay.
the clarity. That's all.
Therefore, no one ever accused the SL2 of being inaccurate. If anything, it nails focus every single time. And yet, traditional DSLRs, from
Especially for tracking.
other cameras, we're not going to say who, tend to have a lot of autofocus calibration errors because the phase detect system is quick, especially for predictive and tracking autofocus, but it's not 100% repeatable, not 100% accurate in those implementations. Now we kind of get the best of both worlds, the speed of the phase detect with the accuracy of the contrast detect. And paired with this new sensor, which definitely has some pretty high readout, high resolution, high signal to noise ratio because of the BSI, and paired with that Maestro 4 processor, we are now seeing very responsive, very accurate autofocus. And for me personally, this has been a game changer because if you've ever watched any of our other episodes, and Josh can tell you, anyone asks me, what's your favorite autofocus setting? I'll be like, single field, center, single field, autofocus, single. That's it. Back button autofocus, right? I'm officially changing my tune because most of my test shooting that I did with the Q3, I used the eye, face, body detection. And sometimes if I was shooting little doggies, I would shoot the eye, face, body, animal detection. I almost never went to field, which for me, if you know how I shoot, is a revelation.
This is a fundamental change in the way you're making images because of a specific new feature introduction on the Q3.
Yes.
As simple as that.
Yes.
Which is
I would
pretty
say-
rare, I think.
I mean, I can say previously the monochrome cameras, especially the M11 monochrome, kind of changed the way I shoot in regards to approaching shutter speed and aperture combinations and being able to just walk into any room. And that, we covered that a couple episodes ago, right?
The last show was MLM monochrome. Yeah.
Whatever, a couple episodes ago.
months
The
ago.
last one.
Yeah.
Being able to basically set, a thousandth of a second at f8 in auto ISO in the, in available light and still come out with amazing images. To me, that was a game-changing feature of the M11 monochrome, but the Q3 changes the game, especially in terms of candid street photography, because I took this to Paris, walked around on the street, and it was absolutely incredible. Even at, f1.7, f2, being able to, I got to pick the right one up, being able to just shoot from the hip or kind of drive-by shooting of, I could just walk by a person and very quickly just go click and never even look at them. And it's dead sharp.
Yeah.
I mentioned the little doggies. So, of course, using the flip-out screen in this orientation, I could drop it all the way down to the pavement, use my thumb to set off the shutter release instead of using my finger, get it all the way down and kind of give a rough estimation for a framing and then just shoot. Again, having little dogs on the sidewalk and stuff. I'll show you some samples of that. And I was blown away, no matter what the lighting conditions, no matter how fast I just stabbed at the shutter button, it always came back with an in-focus image. And to me, that just changes the game.
Yeah.
That just changes the game.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think now we should take some questions, and then you should show some sample images. Then I'll do a little talking, and then I'll show some test images.
Awesome. Love
All
it.
right. So I know we must have about 80 bajillion questions.
Let me go back here. Well, Jose's been keeping track.
Jose, why don't you fire some away for us?
Sure. All right. Let's see. I would appreciate your insights into the optical qualities of the 28mm lens on the Q series of cameras as compared to the 28mm for the M system and SL.
No, that's easy.
I'll let you go.
Apple Summicron SL, sharpest by far, game-changingly sharp. 28 Summilux M, next sharpest, but also has the most character. 28 Summilux on the Q cameras, the third sharpest of those three, but it has the macro functionality, and it of course has autofocus, which the M lens doesn't have. So if the objective is outright performance, SL. If the objective is the most unique look, the most interesting bokeh, the most magic, 28 Summilux M. And then, of course, you're not just getting the Q for the lens, but if you want to have an autofocus macro compact 2817, you go with a Q camera. How's that? Pretty straightforward, I feel
That's
like.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
and Josh actually has some sample images, test images here between the M11 with the 28 Summilux and the Q2 with its 28 Summilux. So
all I know is I'm going to go into the internet with a flamethrower and set this chat on fire because I already know the only two questions people are asking, which I'm not going to address until about 9 o'clock. So you've got 20 minutes before I tear all of you people apart answering those two key questions.
Yeah, let's give it those.
He's going to turn into Al Pacino.
Exactly. It's not going to be fun.
There's going to be a flamethrower. And,
All right, Jose, next question.
Which accessories are backwards compatible with the Q2?
That's a great question.
Great question. So we'll get into the line of accessories later, but the let me talk about what doesn't work. So Q2 thumb support does not work on the Q3. That's the Leica Q2 thumb support.
Well, because you showed there's actually two buttons that'll
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
Right.
I showed
So
that.
physically, it just doesn't mount.
Half cases from the Q2 will not work on the Q3. And that's pretty much it. Filters, straps, batteries work. The hand grip from the Q2 works perfectly on the Q3. The thumbs up works well on the Q3, although he is making one for the Q3. You can use your Q2 thumbs up
one here.
on the Q3 just fine, which we'll show. The Really Right Stuff grip from the Q2 does not work on the Q3, but more things work than don't work. Anything lens related works because the lenses are the same.
Yep.
Screen protector is the same. Batteries are not the same, but of course, as I mentioned,
They're
are
cross-compatible. Yep.
And the grips work as well. So more things are cross-compatible than are not between the Q2 and the Q3. Yeah.
Okay. I think you might have this in your testing, but can you compare the Q3 crop modes to SL2S?
No, I didn't test it against the SL2S because they're such fundamentally different systems. I'm not necessarily shooting the Q3 even in the same mindset that I would shoot the SL2S in. So they're two different beasts for me, I think.
Yeah.
Why is he losing focus, David?
I don't know. Jose,
Jose, the camera doesn't like you today.
hey, oh, that's sharp.
It's sharp. It's the shirt. Oh, yeah. You're trying to get plaid and. All right, what else you got?
Let's see. David, will the USB-C be able to take an audio input?
Not currently, and maybe not ever. I'm not.
Are we sure about that? Didn't Adam said he used it as a webcam with a USB-C to HDMI, or no, maybe it was HDMI to USB-C adapter. I forget what he said he did.
Well, no, you're saying audio input into the camera.
Yeah, I mean to record audio. Basically.
Right. So here, okay, we actually kind of glossed over this, which was we're talking about all the still features, and video is always this rabbit hole because still it's like okay, set it to DNG and LDNG and shoot. That's the other thing we didn't mention, which is this does have variable resolution just like the M11 does, and just like the M11, you should just usually shoot it in full resolution in LDNG. Separate of that, talking about video. Yes, it does 8K video. Yes, it does 4K video. Yes, it also has support for ProRes RAW, which, I mean, all these things are incredible. It's still not the same kind of flexibility for a video camera that you get in the SL2S. It doesn't have audio input. It doesn't have audio output. It is a micro mini something HDMI connector, Type D connector. Yeah. And really, that lack of audio integration, it's significant because I wouldn't personally, as a video person, I wouldn't think of using the Q3 as my A cam, as my primary, this camera, right? The one you're looking at right now that's an SL2, yes. I wouldn't think of using a Q as that. Where I would think about using it is, for instance, well, if it had a longer lens, our overhead camera, but then you'd see everything.
You don't want to see that.
Right. So maybe it's not flexible enough to do that where we need a 200 millimeter lens pointing at the table. Where I really see the Q3 excelling for video is as a B cam or a C cam, especially if you're going to do gimbal work. So if you're going to have like a little handheld single hand gimbal instead of a big rig, Q3 is perfect because it's so light, it's easy to balance, and you can carry it around all day, and you can record 4K or 8K video internally to the SD card, at high quality, and that's going to beat out almost anything else in my mind for that kind of work. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be like your primary camera on a tripod in a studio recording audio because it doesn't record audio except for the built-in mics, which is just for scratch syncing. So that being said, no,
good answer.
You cannot connect external audio into the Q3 if you're thinking about getting into Leica because you like the video look, like what you see here. An SL2S, that's the way to go.
Next question. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
That was good. That was very comprehensive. Appreciate
I think we covered video.
Yeah,
We're done.
That was good.
We're done.
That's good. For now. Next question, Andre. Next question.
Which color material, the new release accessories, do you guys prefer?
Ooh.
Oh, you were just talking about this.
Well, I love the brass.
You want to show it?
The brass. I want to get to the accessories later, just because in theory we could do another episode and cover that if we want. But I like the black because it matches.
Right.
I like the brass because it looks cool. I'd probably have one of each, to be honest with you. Well, why not? It's just it feels like a different. It's like changing your watch strap. It feels like it's the same watch, but it feels like it's a different watch. It's the same thing with the Q. You put on a different hood, different thumb support, different. Soft release, different hot shoe cover, yada yada.
It's like black is like a nice metal bracelet, and the brass is kind of like a nice vintage leather strap.
Yeah, there you go. So I think, but I think the brass is really cool.
Yeah,
I hope.
That's a great thing. They come off so easy. Oh, wow, that's really good work too.
Oh my god, right? That feels amazing.
Whoa,
the brass feels amazing. It's solid.
Heavy.
I love that.
But basically, I agree with Josh. It's so cool to be able to just change your look up, and did a pretty cool job there.
Yeah.
And just to get ahead of that question, I don't know if that question's in here because I haven't been reading it, but inevitably people are like, oh, well, there's black, silver, and brass. Does that mean that Leica's going to come out with a brass?
We've got it right here.
But wait, there's more.
I mean, who knows? I doubt they're going to have a brass one. They did a silver Q, but they never did a silver Q2 production. They did the
didn't.
Ghost, which had silver accent like parts, but the silver Q as a production wasn't limited. So I don't know if they'll do a silver Q3, but we're just getting started, so time will tell.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Can you download images to a MacBook through the USB-C?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And actually, it's pretty fast, just like the M11. So they've got a lot of the same tech in the Q3 that we see in the M11, and it's pretty. I know I timed with the M11. I didn't time it on the S or on the Q3 because I guess I figured it was going to be roughly the same. It's got UHS-2 support, and that reader is the connection. The USB-C connection is the same. It's 10 gigabits per second. Which translates to, what is that in math? What's 10 divided by 8?
Don't ask me. It's
I don't know.
too early for that.
Anyway, it downloads at around 200 megabytes per second.
Two people have asked about the screen protector. The Q2 screen protector works on the Q3. It's the same. Same thing.
Well, now the math is killing me. I got to look. Okay, so 10 times.
Literally got the calculator up right now.
I got the calculator. It's fast.
And what are the results of your calculations?
Very fast.
Okay, we're moving on. Next question.
Basically, it can read at roughly card speed. So if you have a 195 megabyte per second card, that's about the same speed it'll download into your computer. How's that?
Okay. Can you configure the Q3 for back button focus?
Not the way that you want to do it. And you could never really do it on the Q2 the way you want to do it either, even though they just slightly tweak the way that works.
Yeah.
I think the reason is because the Q camera has the hard switch on the lens to go from manual focus to autofocus. And I don't know if there's a way, and I'm just speculating here, I don't know if there's a way inside the camera, once you disengage the autofocus position on the lens, for the camera to still allow the lens to autofocus, like with a back button. Because on the SL2 and the S cameras, the way you activate back button focus is by setting the camera to manual focus.
Exactly.
Because that's done in the menu, whereas on the Q cameras, all of them, it's a physical switch on the lens itself. So I don't know if we'll ever see that true functionality like we get on the SL2s with a real full-time back button focus. I would love to see it. Although
Same.
those buttons are a little small for that. You'd have to put like a sticky, like one of those cabinet bumper things on the back.
Another grip.
But
A little thumb grip.
time will tell. But as of now, no, it doesn't work like we would want it to work.
It also has the same nasty habit as the Q2 of every time you put the camera to your face and your nose touches the screen, the focus point jumps to the corner. So that's another issue.
Someone said, I talked about the silver Q, so just rewind 5 minutes ago.
Does the frame line button extend any further from the body than on the Q2?
No.
No, same.
But what I will tell you, just to interrupt you, Jose, is the thumb support for the Q2 and the thumb support for the Q3, the button sticks out quite a bit further. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like as an autofocus.
Can we get to the
activation.
overhead here?
Yeah.
Can I show this? I want to try.
You got to go up a little bit.
I'm just trying to get it just right. Can you see that? Like, look how they almost stick out twice. This is the Q3 thumb support.
Yeah.
And the button, sort of duplicate buttons, whatever, that hit the buttons on the camera, they stick out quite a bit further. So that,
They're more tactile.
yeah, on the Q2 thumb support, I never liked it, but they're very, very nice on the Q3 thumb support.
Yeah.
Come back to us.
All right, let's do a couple more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
keep 'em
So
coming.
we get to the
Now, where's this question?
We'll
time?
get to the good stuff, yeah.
hot takes. All right, let's see. Do I need the hand grip in order to wirelessly charge?
Yes.
Perfect.
Let's see.
It would have been the camera's not big enough inside to put wireless charging hardware in the camera, and they didn't want to make the camera any bigger.
How fast of a memory card do you need for 8K video? I mean,
Very.
fast
You
as you
need
can find.
you need the what is it? Class was it class 6 or class something?
right?
There you need like a very fast card. I would recommend probably if you're going to do an 8K video, you're going to need something like the Sony Tough cards, which are
Wait, you can use those on this? The tough ones are.
I've always had problems with Sony cards.
Problematic
Leica,
with
so
Leica, yeah.
Be careful. Be careful with that
particular?
advice.
I will try SanDisk
Yeah, SanDisk and Lexar for now, but
Pros and
we'll
highest.
do some testing at some
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
but it's pretty. They're actually. Let me look at the specs on this. Please hold. Can you play the elevator music?
no. Don't sing it.
Okay. I'm just looking at the frame rate. So actually, it's not horrible. Believe it or not, if you look at the specs, and you can look. I'm just looking on Red Dot Forum right now
Let me show
onto the announce. There you go. And we have put out all of the video specs here.
All the specs you could ever
For tech specs, and we separated it from still. But you'll actually notice that, but MOV Cine 8K is actually only 300 megabits per second, which is less than the MOV Cine 4K All I at 600 megabits per second. And the reason, well, that's at 60 frames per second. The reason for that, one, is this 8K is limited to 30, but the other one is that because of card speed limitations, Leica opted to use LGOP or long GOP rather than intra-I, all intra-I. Those are just two different ways to record video. Essentially, LGOP or LGOP is it gives you a keyframe and then records the changes, and then all I records every single frame as a still. So it's just much less efficient in terms of recording speed, but LGOP does require more computing power on the processing side of things, like in your, wherever you're playing back or doing video editing. All of that is sort of a moot point now. If you have, say, like, one of the new M2 Max chips, it has dual video encoders for this kind of stuff, so you'll never even notice it.
Okay.
Okay,
Next question.
back.
Let's see. Would it charge in any wireless charger, or does it need to be the Leica one?
No, like I mentioned earlier, any Qi compatible charger.
Not anyone.
10 watts.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right. It has to be 10 watts or higher.
Yeah, I was getting there. I also have that in the listing.
Yeah,
on our website.
it is,
So yeah,
it
10
is,
watts or higher, Qi compatible charger will work.
Yeah.
The Leica one's nice because it says Leica on it. So
Well,
just
and
saying.
it's soft and it won't
It's
scratch.
really nice.
It is really nice.
Just saying.
And it's metal.
I'm just saying.
You know how we like metal.
That's right. What else you got?
I think that's it. The rest of the questions are probably
The ones I'm going to answer?
related to
All right,
the
so there-
yeah, we're going to answer them.
Let's do it right now, and then you can show some images, right? So
Sure.
there's two important questions that I know, or maybe not, a combination of like question / point, whatever. Number one, so when the Q came out, it was a game changer. And of course, what we didn't know was 6 months later, 7 months later, we were going to see the SL, which incorporated a lot of the features of the Q, including most of the sensor. I mean, it changed the way that David and I photographed. Then we saw the Q2. And then sometime later, we saw the SL2, which took a lot of the stuff from the Q2 into the SL2. Now that the Q3 is out, the questions we're getting is when is there going to be an SL3? Is an SL3 going to incorporate whatever things the Q3 brings to the table? Of course, we have no idea. As we've said about 80 billion times, we don't know more than a day or two, maybe 3 days ahead of time, what is coming next. And if for some reason we do know further out, well, we're signing NDAs and we can't tell you.
And as evidenced in multiple occasions when we've done a show,
Yes.
and then 2 days later there's an announcement, and we're like, "Are you serious, Leica?
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have told us beforehand?"
They kill us. So,
Yeah.
however, we can use common sense and look at the last 2 times this happened, Q to SL, Q2 to SL2. So I have to assume we're going to see a lot of the Q3 features in the SL3. I'm not going to expect to see an SL3 anytime soon when they have to make Q3s, which brings us to the next question in a moment. But we're excited for the future, like everyone else. We were super excited when everyone kept asking us, is there going to be a Q3? And then they came out and we were freaking out. And now we finally get to do a show and everyone's excited. So believe me, when an SL successor, whenever it comes out, we're going to do a show about it. We're going to get you hyped up. We're going to tell you all the things you need to know. Before that, it's pure speculation, and it's just distracting me from getting out and taking pictures or petting my dog or drinking beer. So I don't want to hear it. And if I see anyone say SL3 monochrome in the chat, you're going to get banned. You're
Wait,
banned.
SL3 or Q3?
No, SL3 monochrome.
Oh,
If I see
geez.
you're banned. That's it.
my
I'm
gosh.
I'm going to your house. I'm cutting all your internet cables. And you're not allowed to go online anymore.
Ouch.
Okay.
Okay.
The next question is really the one that, like, I look through all of our emails to see what people, just to have questions ready.
Sure.
Where's my camera? That's the question we get every day, 50 times a day, which is actually fantastic because I remember back in the day, we had to work a lot harder to convince you to buy something, and now it's the other way around. Now they're bribing me with luxury private jet trips.
Wait, what?
Oh, wait, no, sorry.
I didn't hear about that.
Sorry. But the reality is that the Q3 is probably Leica's most universally appealing camera. I think the Q system in general is a camera that has the widest audience. I just saw a picture of Lando Norris, who's a Formula One driver, using a Q2 the other day. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I know Daniel Ricciardo has one.
And we've talked about this in our Q episode,
Yeah.
which is a Q, in my mind, I call it an and camera, right? Because I think any M user would benefit from having a Q. And I think any SL owner would benefit from having a Q. Personally, I use the SL2 as my primary camera, and I use a Q2 monochrome currently as my secondary camera that I also carry with it. And they go so well together. They share the same battery, the same interface, all that. Anyway, the point is,
Yes.
to get back to you.
I don't think
When can you get one?
I don't think there's anybody watching this show who doesn't work at a Leica store who truly understands the demand that exists right now for this camera. And I feel very fortunate that that's the case because what's better than people wanting to buy what you have to sell?
I guess so.
However, these are handmade products. These are niche market, small production products. They don't make a lot of them. It is going to take Leica, I would assume, well into the rest of this year, maybe into next year, to actually get caught up
At least.
with the demand. Meaning, where you could walk into any Leica store and just pick one up off the shelf.
And we can look to historical context. We can look, even the original Q and the Q2. I mean, those were months long until the demand, the supply caught up to the demand, but not permanently. Even the Q2, through its life cycle, and the original Q was constantly being sold out and waiting for resupply and sold out again.
Yeah.
It's, we call it kind of a little nickname. The Q is like the popular kid. Everybody likes the Q.
The most important thing to understand about that is the question we get the most is, hey, Josh, I'm on your list. When am I getting my camera? And the answer is very simple. I don't know. And people will say, well, how many people are waiting? And how many cameras did you get? And how many is Leica going to send you next week? The challenge for us, and I can only speak for Leica Store Miami, which is where we work, and that's what we do, right? This is just like a hobby for us, this YouTube thing, is there is no consistency with regard to anything. How many we get, how often they come in, how many people cancel their pre-orders. It's random. I could have one person on a waiting list for any Leica product, Q3 or otherwise, and I can say to them, well, you're the only person I have waiting. They're going to go, that'll be soon, right? And I'll go, I don't know, because we don't know. Now, of course, this is how every Leica launch is in the beginning. Things will eventually get into a rhythm. Most people will get what they want. It'll be much easier. But this early on, the first month, the first few months, we're in a black hole. So we don't know. We can't tell you. We can't guess. We can't say, oh, it'll be about, no. Because if I say a number, it is fabrication. And we don't take money for pre-orders, so it's not like we're holding on to anyone's money. And obviously, as people whose job it is to sell cameras, we want to get you the camera as fast as possible. We are at the mercy of what Leica sends us. So I just want you guys to understand that it's not a secret society, Illuminati of like,
don't tell them about the secret handshake though.
Where the camera's going. No, there just is an overwhelming demand. I mean, I would say, Jose, you could second on this. Maybe 75% of our day is about the Q3 in some capacity or other. Like showing someone the camera, taking your pre-order for the camera, telling people that we don't know when they're going to get one. And I love that. I mean, honestly, that's amazing.
Well, you don't love I don't know when we're going to get it.
I mean, I don't know, but I love the excitement. I'm not annoyed when someone asks you, like, where's my camera? Because the reality is that means you want one. Like, that's the best thing. But I just can't tell you. I can't guess. I can't say it's going to be a week, a month, or 6 months. I have no idea.
Well, you could guess. You'd just be wildly inaccurate.
And every major product launches like this. M11 was the same thing,
But the difference between...
Let me
handle this one thing first.
Because I'm going to say some things never catch up.
Right. The difference between the Q3 and the Rolex you want, or the GT3 Porsche that you want, or the Birkin bag is everyone who wants a Q3 will get one eventually. It's not so exclusive and so special and so limited that you have to play a bunch of games and spend a bunch of money on all this. It's not like that. If you want one, you will get one. The longest wait time we've ever seen outside of like 35 APO is 8 to 12 months. And now Leica's got the new factory that's up and running.
Well, I think you need to qualify that. That's 8 to 12 months, not of anyone actually waiting that amount of time. That's how long it is from when pre-orders start to when in stock.
Yeah.
Anyone, let's say, who would have ordered early on at the very first isn't waiting 8 months. They're waiting, this short amount of time.
Yeah.
And as you get towards the end of the list, people who are waiting there, they might only wait the last people might wait a week, and then they're going to get it. But the people back in the beginning of the process who say, oh, I'm just going to wait till it's in stock, they will wait 8 to 12 months.
Yeah. It's worth the wait. I promise.
Well, it's worth less wait by pre-ordering it.
Yes. Now, the biggest enemy to you, person watching this, who has a Q3 on order with Leica Star Miami, and again, we can only speak to the way Leica Star Miami does things and the things that we see. We can't speak for Leica Corporate. We're not owned by them. We can't speak for Leica Store, blah, blah, blah. Bunch of great stores out there. We have great relationships with them, but we're our own thing. Is when you pre-order with us and I finally get your camera, or when I'm reaching out to you to be like, hey, you're on the list, do you still want one? What am I going to do? I'm going to send you an email, because the reality is everybody's really busy and we need some kind of chain of communication that we know what's going on. So I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to say either, hey, your camera's here, be excited, pop the champagne, or hey, just checking in, seeing if you still want it. Now, what's going to happen is that email is going to come from info@leicastarmiami.com, email address everybody knows if you've ever reached out to us, and it's going to go into your spam folder. It's going to go into your Gmail promotions folder. It's going to go somewhere. I've started to realize that this is a huge problem for giving people good news. I'm not sending you gifts of bunny rabbits, okay? I'm just giving you good news. I'm saying your camera's here, your lens is here. So if you're on any waiting list with Leica Star Miami, or if you value the communication that you get from us, again, we don't spam you with random nonsense, add info@leicastarmiami.com to your contacts, to your address book, whitelist us, safe senders, whatever you want to call it, so that when I reach out to you and say, your Q3 is here, a person in the chat saying, I can't wait for my camera to get here, how many people are ahead of me on the list, and that email goes to your promotions folder in your Gmail, and you never see it, and then suddenly you get mad at me because I didn't give you a camera. So just please, I'm begging everyone watching to just add info@leicastarmiami.com if you want to get our emails in your inbox and actually see the things we have to tell you. Please do that. Okay, my rant is over.
Are you done?
I'm done now. I think we should divert from Josh's chaos.
Wow.
Before you show images, when we get it spooled up, Jose, are there any last minute questions?
Well, you're being trolled.
When are we getting the Q3? Oh, wait, sorry.
Who's trolling me? I love being trolled. This is why I exist on the internet, is to be trolled.
Here you go.
I'm going to get banned. Everyone knows nothing about it. I haven't done it. Yes, for sure. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Pre-order, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Jose,
Anyway,
did we miss
I
anything?
need last minute questions before we actually get away from me just setting the
Can
world
you
on
explain your pre-ordering process, please?
fire. Yeah, you go on our website, you fill out a 30-second form, and you're on the list. Then when I get a camera for you, I email you, and if you haven't added my email to your safe senders, you don't find out about it. If you have, then you find out. Then I take your money.
No deposit, no commitment required.
Yeah, exactly. It's free to place your pre-order with us. We do that on purpose because we just don't know. And also when you pre-order with us, if you've got a trade-in, you put that on the pre-order form. You say, hey, you say yes. Do you have a trade-in? You say yes. You tell us what it is, because of course we take trades, and that's how we know to ask you about it when the time comes. So I don't think we could have made it any easier to pre-order with us. Hopefully that means people who pre-order with us stick with us and get their cameras. But if you don't, the least you could do at least is give me a heads up and say, hey, by the way, take me off your list, because
It'll help the next people.
yeah, because if you have ever waited for a product from anyone and been frustrated, well, me having to reach out to 10 people, spend 2 weeks finding out that 8 of them got a camera somewhere else, well, that was a waste of time. So anyway, I'm done ranting. I mean, not done for now.
Okay. What are we doing now?
We show some pictures.
Let's show
David
some
got some
pictures.
great stuff in Paris with the Q3. So I'm going to stop my screaming at you and cut over to David's computer screen, please, before I say something else I'm going to regret.
Magical.
You ready for...
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, yeah. There you go. This is Lightroom. So, fair warning, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here. And actually, what I'm curious if Jose can keep an eye on the chat, since I don't see it anymore because you're looking at what I'm seeing, if people want to see anything in particular, whether that's low light or
I would
architecture,
say, well, it's
whatever.
after 9. I'd say we could usually give 10 solid minutes to this and show, I think, the things that make the Q3 special. So in
Sure.
my opinion, I want to see what the tracking focus does.
Sure.
I want to see what kind of croppability you're working with.
Okay.
And I want to see low light performance for me.
All right, so I'm gonna just click here. So this is an example of, well, actually, we used the electronic shutter in this case for a moving subject, and it didn't blur. Perfect. So this is outside the Louvre. As you can see, the little pyramid here on the left side. And we've got this girl was doing some fancy skateboarding stuff.
Skateboarding?
Or
Roller
skating. Roller skating.
Miniature skateboards, miniature individual foot skateboards.
Roller skating, and she was performing for her phone, which people are oblivious. But this is an example where I took the camera.
We should make it a TikTok, David. That's what the kids do.
No. She was talking to somebody.
Yeah.
She was actually doing FaceTime.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, she was FaceTiming because she was talking. We thought that maybe she was talking to us, but she definitely wasn't talking to us.
I'll stop interrupting you. I'm sorry.
And she was speaking English, so I think she's American. Okay. So I used the flip out screen. I put it in the eye, face, body detection, and I just put it down on the ground and click, 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 click. And amazingly, it is,
Did you use the burst mode for that, David,
No.
or you just kind of did individual shots?
individual shots.
Okay.
Just, I was timing it and looking. I was actually looking at what she was doing because I wanted her arms up and, different expressions. But yeah, she's here the ear pods in. So yeah, this was kind of, an interesting test. This was early on to see how that would work. And then likewise, also outside the Louvre, there was this lady blowing extra large bubbles. And it was pretty neat being able to just kind of go. And again, you can see the low angle here. I am definitely taller than an 8-year-old, but a little bit. The perspective here is from very, very low down. And I'm just trying to get in the action and really utilize that 28 to get that perspective and childlike wonder. And I think it's, pretty cool. I did there's a whole bunch of these because that's actually my normal height. And just using that, the eye, face, body is amazing because it would always just lock on to the kids. Really fantastic. It also works for static subjects like, someone standing in front of everyone else.
So you're not, just so the viewers understand, you're not manually assigning a focus point, putting it over the subject, and clicking. You're using the face, eye, body detection.
Yes.
Just firing the shutter, and the camera's nailing that focus for you.
Yes, and in fact, I'm using the IAF function, which is the intelligent autofocus. Okay. And if people don't know what that is, the different because there's AFS, AFC, so autofocus single, autofocus continuous, and then you have IAF. What IAF does is when you lock on to the subject, it's single autofocus mode, and as long as you're half pressing the shutter down and the box is green, if the subject or you, in relation to the subject, moves, it refocuses. So it's sort of a hybrid single/continuous tracking function as long as you have locked on focus. And that's I found to be my preferred method of shooting, especially for this, where I could kind of half press down, lock the subject like those kids running around, and then get tracking and then shoot the picture.
Nice.
But being able to just be really quick, again, more subjects, right? Being able to, and in this case, I'm just sort of walking by and shooting, very subtly. This guy's on a smoke break. And I can show you an even crazier example of that. Well, actually, these are more simple examples. First, simple examples of a lot of that same concept, which is kind of walking by on the Seine, people having a coffee, enjoying a nice day, and snap. And you'll notice that it's shallow depth of field. But it nails focus every single time with every single person.
Yeah, I think what's hard to probably appreciate on the screen is just how nice the focus fall off is.
That's F2. Yeah.
Yeah, at F2. Yeah, you're at F2 there. Yeah, I mean, that's really quite pleasant, especially for a lens as wide as a 28. That's very, very nice.
And what's impressive to me is this. I mean, mainly it's this focus. I mean, I'm used to the Leica look, right? So to me, and I can cover my processing really simply, which is I don't have a Q3 preset because I just use my M11 preset. and it worked pretty good. I'd say for most everything. I didn't have to do much tinkering after that. And here is where we switch it from eye face body to eye face body animal. And here's an animal. Again, I'm almost at ground level here, and I did not have to get on my knees. I could actually just sort of bend down and look at the screen. And super easy. Again, I'm shooting f2.2 here, and it just nails the focus right on the eye, just so precisely.
Wow.
You know, it's just incredible.
Super sharp.
Yeah, super sharp and fantastic. You know, if you're just kind of wandering by and there's a guy like at a bar here, like again, it just nails whatever you're looking at.
Show us some low light stuff. I want to see that.
Well, I got to show you another animal. This was a cat for all the cat people.
Oh,
Except this cat, this was on East St. Louis, and what's crazy is it was just sitting there, just chilling, like unfazed by everything. And then the owner came out of that doorway behind it and called its name, and it followed him like a dog. It was so strange.
Oh, that's awesome.
So strange.
got a color on, yeah.
So let's take a look at some. I could show you some low light, or actually, I'm
And
going to show
black
you
and
low
white.
light and the eye face body.
Oh, perfect. I love it.
So this one is not the most amazing picture, but I think it kind of shows the capabilities of what you can do, which is here I am. It's 5,000 ISO at f2.8. I'm doing a drive-by here, walking on the sidewalk. I see this guy just step out of that doorway to light up a cigarette, and I just quickly grab the camera and just push, and it grabs it. Like, that to me is the most impressive thing, because this is clearly not very good light. He's backlit, and it still acquires focus. So really, really impressive. And for everyone,
10,000. Ooh.
this is ISO 10,000. So now we're getting into some low light stuff. And, you know, it does a pretty decent job. I think the colors maintain nicely, again, kind of like the M11 does. And we'll get more into that as we go. Here's another one at 5,000. You know, and learning my lesson from other cameras, this is at 500th of a second because I want to stop the people. And it does a really nice job, you know, especially in this blue hour kind of stuff. Let's see if there's, oh, here we have actually Notre Dame, which is not covered in scaffolding right now. And this one's at 12,500, just handheld off a bridge. Here I'm only at 125 at f4 because it's really dark. And I think it did okay. We'll get into image quality analysis in a bit. But if I keep just kind of going through and I see how many more just straight people shots I have than I normally do, it's because it was so incredibly easy to do so with the Q3's eye face body. And every single time, just perfect focus on the face. And that, if you know, can be quite the challenge. Even this one. So I came up to this guy. I saw him doing some acrobatics tricks. You'll notice from the perspective that you can actually see the blades of grass in the foreground of there because the camera is in the grass. And I'm just tipping it up. I saw him do this little move here. Again, eye face body. It just nails it. These first two were sort of candid of him just doing his thing. And then after that, I said, hey, would you mind doing something a little higher? And I put the camera down. I didn't pre-focus it. All I did was set it in that eye face body. It locked onto him in IAF. I held it down. And then as he jumped up and did his flip, I depressed it all the way. And yes, it is actually single shot, not in continuous. So I just did one shot of this. And it gets it. So the camera can do it. It can actually do the autofocus thing that everyone has wanted to do, right?
Yeah. Let's just pause for a second. Jose, are there any questions that have come in that are related to kind of what David's talking about or images here?
let me see. A couple of questions about like monochrome. Comparison to the Q2 monochrome, if you have.
We'll do that. We'll do that separately.
But
in terms of color, let's talk a little bit about color response.
Sure. Let me just check here. Yeah, no. Okay, do you have any samples from 36 megapixel?
Kind of.
well, David doesn't. We don't use.
Right, I didn't do it that way.
We don't use the triple resolution stuff. David just crops as needed.
Right.
So
So
that's not really the same thing. I'm sorry.
those are not the same thing.
Sorry, that was not the right way to explain it. We don't use because we're paying for 60 megapixels.
There you go.
We're going to use 60 megapixels.
There you go.
There's no downside to going to the lower resolution aside from losing resolution, but there's no real upside
Right.
either.
Well, and you're losing, remember, we're on a fixed 28 here. So on an M11, where you have interchangeable lenses and you can put a 90 millimeter on, is it a big deal to shoot 36?
Yeah.
No, because you're probably not going to crop it. But here you're at 28, and if you do end up cropping, you're going to dramatically reduce those pixels pretty quickly, especially if you're starting just at 36.
Yeah.
You're not gaining any kind of appreciable advantage in terms of low light performance or dynamic range. All you're giving up is pixels. And like Josh is saying, you're paying for the pixels, you may as well use them.
There you go.
Certainly, I had no issues processing these files. I've got a 16-inch MacBook. It cuts through these things like butter. Even this, which is a desktop I built, well, now 3 or 4 years ago, obviously it's doing fine with these. So I wouldn't really use that as as something to hold you back. You know, you want the best image quality, shoot the highest resolution. It also will give you greater ability to apply noise reduction because you'll have smaller pixel size and finer noise.
We should.
So let me talk a little bit
Yeah,
about.
we're already at 12 minutes of images, so
That's
we
all
should.
right. Let's talk about kind of the color response, because a lot of people always ask me, oh, well, does it look like X, Y, or Z? I'd say that it responds very similarly to files that I'm used to on the M11 and the SL2. I mean, some people might be like, those don't respond at all the same. Well, I have a preset for each camera. I did apply these with my M11 preset, and it gets it really close. I also don't think once a preset's applied that it's too far off of where the SL2 is. I could slot this so easily into my normal workflow with all my other cameras. So taking a look kind of at a little richer color, this is after sunset, also 12,500. So like the M11, it holds that color saturation really well into the high ISO range, which I think is something lacking on earlier generations that we're really seeing with the BSI technology. So very happy about that. There's certainly, let's go here. You know, it holds
Ooh, that's nice.
dynamic range pretty well. In terms of, and I'm going to go, everyone always asks, what does it look like at a camera?
There's no such thing as out of camera, but
So I'm going to reset this just so you see.
wow.
Okay, so now we're talking about dynamic range. This is ISO 100, and we can clearly see our histogram here, and all that is just blown out black. And just with a little bit of bump here. There we go. So all of that information is sitting in the shadows, and again, we expose for the highlights, so the sun isn't clipped. It's nice clear sun, and we have all that other information. So we're definitely getting a lot of dynamic range. You can also see this is another one, which was some pretty crazy dynamic range. Just bring this up. So if I reset it, again, you'll see the subjects are pretty much silhouettes, and we're bringing that out. I think I have one more to demonstrate this, which was, where are we? I might be going the wrong way. Oh, actually, I wanted to break from that just to show,
Right, we got it
again,
It's 918, so
yeah,
yeah,
some
be
of that,
mindful.
right, that really nice, richly saturated color. And it's not because if you look at my corrections here, and maybe it's too small on the screen, but I've got my vibrance at +11 and my saturation at +13, which is not a lot. Like the M11, you don't need a lot. If you have saturated color lighting, it will give you a punchy look. Likewise, you can get a subtle look out of it. And this one we showed because of cropping. It looks like a normal image. If I pop up my information here, you'll see that it's about 6,500 by 4,300 pixels because the original was in a larger frame. This is going to be equivalent to roughly the 50 millimeter crop on the Q3, except I adjusted it to go up. And instead of using those built-in crop modes, I just shoot full frame with the idea that I can crop later, which is what I did here. But it's roughly equivalent to that, and I do think that makes for a stronger shot. And because the character of that lens, that 28, it doesn't inherently look like a 28. It doesn't have the distortion or curvature. So like this, if I told you I shot with this with an M11 and a 50 millimeter, you'd be like, okay, you would have no reason to doubt me. So that's kind of roughly kind of what we're looking at.
We'll see more of these once
Come back to
David puts the finishing, when I say finishing, I mean starting touches on his Q3 review, which he is eventually going to have. So
I will. And our colleague Kirsten, who you guys know and love, Kirsten and I did the Paris workshop together, and I handed off the Q3 that I used in Paris to her, and she actually went with her fiance and his daughter to the French Alps, where they did some hiking and adventuring, and went to some really pretty places in the Alps. And Kirsten shot some incredible shots with the Q3, which I've seen already. And she is also putting together some of those to
lots of content to drive you guys crazy because you can't buy a Q3 right now. So,
but you can read. You can read and look.
But in a year, when everyone who wants one has one, and you're looking for inspiration, and then you're going to come back to us and say, "I'm so grateful that you guys did." You'll see. Anyway, Jose, there must be more questions. If there's not, let me show some accessories.
I want to show.
I
want to show one other.
David, we've
I'm
shown
showing
like
one
80
other
pictures.
thing.
It's nine.
I'm showing one other thing,
9:21.
and this is about the autofocus.
You get one picture. I'm
we go.
counting down. It's setting
Here
a
we go.
timer.
Come back to here.
20 seconds.
Because I remember this is one I want to show. Okay. So this is, again, taken at sunset, heavily backlit, and I couldn't really even see these people through the viewfinder because they were just silhouettes. Using that eye face body, you can see that it just perfectly picked out this guy as a subject, even being so heavily backlit in that case. So I think, and you can come back to us here. Looking at the torture tests, heavily backlit, almost featureless silhouetted subject, and finding focus. 5,000 ISO, wide open, or not quite wide open, but almost wide open, walking by, not even stopping, and acquiring focus on a human subject. The myriad dog and cat photos that I kept shooting because I couldn't help myself. Every single shot is in focus. Like, that's the biggest headlining feature here. It's not the 60 megapixels. It's not even the beautiful viewfinder, which is really nice. It's certainly not the tilting screen, which I can share my thoughts on, but it basically, it's useful, but not necessary. If you gave me a Q2 and said, shoot this now, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't use this, it has no tilting screen.
Right.
And in fact, if you gave me a Q3 with all those features, without tilting screen, I'd still be happy. So I'm sure it will satisfy some. Did I use it? Yes. Was it necessary? No. It's nice though. But for me, it's that autofocus.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Very
now,
cool.
you wanted me to bring up
No, I want to show accessories.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to get away from the screen for a minute, show some hands-on hardware, and then we're going to show our comparison images that I shot. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So when the Q3 launched, we got about 20 or so new accessories, and we showed you the grip and the charger, and you can get an extra battery. But we also got some really cool accessories to allow you to customize the camera to your taste. And the best part is, aside from the thumb supports, most of these accessories work on the Q2 and even the original Q, which is really cool. So it's not just for people that have Q3s. So the accessories come in 3 colorways, for lack of a better explanation. Let's do the overhead camera here. Breaking stuff. Okay. Jose, thank you. So these are the lens hoods, and the color schemes that we're seeing here are what we're going to see across the line. So there's brass, which is actually made from brass. There is silver, and there is black. The silver and the black accessories are all anodized aluminum. The black is going to be a perfect match for the camera, and the brass one is actually brass, and it weighs considerably more. As I mentioned earlier, the Q3 does have the same lens, so it's compatible with the OTEC Q cap, like so, which is my personal favorite cap for the Q2, Q3, Q116 hood because it just looks perfect. It's also compatible with the rubber cap from Match Technical, like so. And if you've gotten a Q3 already or seen one, you've probably noticed that the infamously bad, constantly falling off Q2 and Q cap is not quite the same as we see on the Q3. It looks the same from the front. They've gotten rid of the felt. Let's see if I can show this. No more felt lining. There's now just like a plasticky sort of thing. So essentially it's going to fit tighter. This is the one that comes with the Q3, and it's not going to start to fail, but it's a little too tight for my taste. If you want to use one of the hoods, you take off the hood, and just keep in mind that the hood, the optional hood, doesn't interfere with filters just like the regular hood does. Let's put the silver one on. You can see that looks super, super cool. We can pop on the silver thumb support. Look at that. And we can even go silver soft release. So now we've got like the
Just take it on. Just go.
the full collection of silver. Now, something I want to mention as well, if you've got one of these accessory or these round lens hoods attached, obviously the standard Q cap is no longer going to work. There are two ways you can cap it, if you will. The first is with a 49 millimeter cap, which is going to go inside of here. I like the breakthrough cap because it's got the pinch style. So you just kind of pop it in there, and that's going to work with or without a filter. Looks just fine. If you want instead to cap the hood itself, a 67 millimeter cap works perfectly. This is the one that goes on the SL Apo Summicron prime lenses as well as the 75 Noct Deluxe. You can also use the breakthrough pinch style cap, and either one of these is a perfect fit. So if you're going to work with one of these optional round lens hoods and you don't want to have to take it off and put on the regular hood every time you want to use a cap, you can do it with one of those two options. So again, yes.
I would point out that it's ventilated, so it won't prevent all dust. The cap is not going to prevent all dust.
No, but
it protects.
I've seen your cameras, Dave. You don't even use caps. So what are you talking about? But again, let's just, for the sake of showing it, grab an original Q. So here's a camera from 2015. I can take off the hood. I can let's throw on the brass one.
Ooh, okay, this does look really nice.
Yeah, now of course I can't use the brass thumb support or soft release, but I could use the brass hot shoe cover. Here we go. Boom. Sick. Now this is original Q. So again, all these accessories work. Q2 monochrome, QP, whatever you got, it's going to work. I think if you have a Q2 Ghost, you should definitely get the silver hood, silver thumb support, and silver hot shoe cover because that's going to match really well. So otherwise, accessories-wise, we showed the grip. We showed...
You're using that in an original Q.
Yeah, I know, that's so cool. We showed I think we showed everything. Soft release.
We'll show it on the Q3.
Oh, you want to see like
all
the brass?
All
Let's
brass.
go all brass on the Q3.
Yeah.
This is
got to do it.
I've seen some of this on social media. I think this is the prevailing, most popular, aside from black.
I think so too.
Because it looks sick. We had someone in the store, one of the first Q3 buyers from us, do this combo as well.
Wow.
That is...
And I like the black buttons.
Yeah, that looks really, really, really cool. That looks really... Look at that. Sick. I love that. So
how would that look on the Daniel Craig one?
Really cool, I bet.
Yeah.
Oh, with the gold accents there? Yeah. Sweet.
Or a seal edition too.
Ooh, also true. Yeah, there's the sky's the limit for this kind of stuff for sure. That's the fun part about this new accessories line is that you can get a few, you can customize, you can go black and be super straightforward like that, or you can go mix it up with different colors. So I encourage you to experiment. Which one of these hoods is? Okay, here we go. Let's put the original Q hood on the Q3, which would have been somewhat of a travesty from a condition standpoint. Show the grip. Let me show real quick. The Q2 grip works perfectly on the Q3. So this is the Q2 grip, Q2 hand grip from Leica, Q3. It's a perfect fit. And interestingly enough, this is now we're getting real subtle here, but the actual grip portion here of the Q2 hand grip is a little bit deeper, a little bit bigger than the grip portion on the Q3 hand grip. So if you don't care about the wireless charging and you just want as much of a grip as possible, I would actually go with the Q2 grip. Or if you already own a Q2 and a Q2 grip and you trade in the camera, I would keep the hand grip because I happen to like this slightly more, just a little bit deeper grip handle than you get with the Q3 grip. So a minor thing, but something I wanted to mention. Okay, we can go back to us, Jose. Any questions before I show some sweet test images?
Let's see.
I'm making a mess with all my toys
I
here.
have your stuff pulled up here. So
David, what do you think about, is the auto white balance in the Q3 any different than the Q2? Do you notice any difference?
So this gets into another way that I've recommended people shoot with Leicas these days, which is I just set it to daylight. I don't use auto white balance.
We should switch seats so I can control the computer.
Maybe,
Yeah.
or I could just give you.
Oh,
this.
you can give me the keyboard. Okay, fine. 'Cause I was like, I know the original idea was that you were going to do it, but
yeah.
there's
I know.
too many specific things going on.
There is.
Pardon us while we clean up our mess here.
Wireless. So let me answer that question. Okay.
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
So I prefer using daylight white balance as my default. The reason for that is I also preferred using daylight balanced film, and I would shoot in different conditions. And when you have a nice, lovely, warm sunset, it's warm. And when you have a nice, cool blue hour kind of shot, it's blue. You get the idea. If you use auto white balance, it tends to, and this isn't just on Leicas, but on most cameras, it tends to try to normalize with the light that you're seeing. So if you have a nice, really pretty, end of day warm light, it tends to suck the life out of that. Leica, of all the cameras I've tried, tends to have the best auto white balance algorithm in terms of staying most true to the intended scene, as well as balancing different colors of lighting in a same scene. So balancing daylight with tungsten and fluorescent tends to come together really nicely. But that being said, I do tend to just use daylight these days, and then sometimes if I'm going out like at night where I'm shooting with all these, the light is just from street lights and illumination, I might go to tungsten, although more and more light, I would say artificial lighting used to be 100% tungsten. Now we are becoming more and more LED centric, which means more and more veering toward daylight. There's no one answer. I would suggest trying it out and seeing what works best.
There you go.
You know,
Let's look at some photos. So what I have done here is I have tested the Q3 against the Q2, the Q2 monochrome, and the M11 with the 28 Summilux. And the first thing I'm going to show is the highest I would traditionally go on the Q2 was ISO 6400. And I'm going to compare 6400 on the Q3 versus the Q2. And let's take a look at this lovely shelf of camera bags, which includes in the center the new line of Oberworth Q bags, which are awesome. So this slight plug there. And what we can see here is not only are we, of course, gaining a significant resolution advantage. What did we say, David? 27%?
27%.
From the Q3. We are getting
27.6%.
Oh, right. We are getting a noise advantage. This is about a stop and a third, and you can really see the difference in the grain at 6400, which basically means that the ceiling for the Q is now no longer 6400, but is in fact higher. I mean, that is a considerable difference, especially as you start getting into the shadow areas. I mean, look at that. Huge difference.
Yeah.
What I'll show you now is if we go to an ISO setting I would not use on the, here we go, Q3 and Q2. Here we go. So 12.5, which is where I would never go, or would be very not likely to go on the Q2, is really my ceiling on the Q3. I don't know if you would concur with that from your experience, but
yeah, I really didn't shoot anything higher than 12,500 after doing a lot of experimentation.
I mean, you can see that.
I prefer to stay at 10,000 or lower.
Yeah, but it's more than usable. There's detail here in the stitching. There's detail. You can start to still see the bag texture. Whereas on the Q2, it's not useless, but it would be pretty hard for me to do that. Now, the number one question I got actually wasn't Q3 versus Q2 or Q3 versus M11. It was Q3 versus Q2 monochrome, which I find fascinating.
That is fascinating.
So let's talk about it.
Talk.
Are there two?
Those are variants. You made a variant for some reason.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Yeah, okay, here we go. So The Q2. So we got Q3 on the left, Q2 monochrome on the right, 12,500, which is kind of my ceiling for the Q3. And the Q2 monochrome is better.
Yes.
What do you say? The Q3 is newer. What does that tell you? That tells you how good the Q2 monochrome is, and the benefits of a monochromatic sensor are never to be understated, because even a camera that's a generation newer can't compete. I mean, it's pretty close. And of course, you have more resolution, but I did some downsampling. Q2 monochrome is still better. We saw a similar experience with M10 monochrome versus M11. Not quite, because the M11 is still better than the Q3. We'll get there. But if you have a Q2 monochrome and you love the Q2 monochrome, yes, the Q3 has all the things we just talked about that are better, but if your objective is just about image quality and high ISO, stick with the Q2 monochrome. Because you can see right here, there is less grain, considerably so, and more detail at ISO 12,500. Now, of course, at 64, or excuse me, at 100, 200, 400, the differences are a lot closer, but using a monochromatic sensor is still going to give you a much different experience. Now, again, if the difference is the autofocus performance or the tilting screen or the better finder, then yeah, you should get a Q3. But if you just want that ultimate low light performance, Q2 monochrome is crazy, crazy good.
Yeah. Well, and 12,500 is not even the limit.
No, I mean, it's really spectacular. Now, the speculation has been that the Q3 and the M11 share the same sensor, which I'm about to show you is not the case. At least in our opinion.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away. Come on.
Why not? I don't think they do. So Q3 on the left, M11 on the right, 28 Summilux. We've stopped down to 5.6. We're trying to give everybody the best chance of success. And let's give it a second here to load up.
Yeah, color differences.
Well, because I didn't spend 3 weeks doing minor post-processing. I only had 1 day to do this. But look, Q3, good. M11, great. Tighter noise pattern, more detail, not to mention the higher performance from the 28 Summilux M lens overall, especially in the corners. So
higher contrast too.
If your objective is the highest image quality, the best low light performance for a color camera, M11, still king of the hill. 28 Summilux, still spectacular. If you want autofocus, well, I don't care how good the M11 is, you shouldn't get it. Again, don't ignore the color differences. These are just post-processing differences. But the M11 performance at 12.5 is remarkable. And these are the exact same exposure, so you tell me that I'm cheating or anything like that. It's really something else. As you start to get lower, the differences are not as apparent, but they're still there, interestingly enough.
Well, and if I could chime in here.
Yes, please.
On M11 versus, come back to us while Josh looks for that.
Yeah. Don't mind me not looking at the camera.
Having extensive experience shooting with the M11 and processing many, many thousands of M11 files and now a few thousand Q3 files, it immediately became apparent to me that the M11, I would say a stop better in terms of...
Enzo's running under the table.
Yes, the dog
they can't hear
He's dreaming. He's dreaming.
He's so cute.
The M11 is a stop better in terms of low light performance. And I would also say that responds better to noise reduction, which Josh is not showing here. These are just with nothing on them, right?
Very basic,
just basic
generic.
preset, okay.
That's why the colors are different, because I just didn't have the time to like.
But you didn't apply significant noise reduction.
No, and you have AI noise reduction now, and
which we did not use.
Stuff, which I know.
Right.
I'm not playing any games.
Not yet. But I would say the M11 files respond better to noise reduction than the Q3 monochrome files do. The files are...
You just said Q3 monochrome. Are you trying to make my life that much more difficult? Or not? There's no waiting list for that yet, but don't call me tomorrow.
Q3. I'm sorry. I saw this out of the corner of my eye. I'm like reading the screen. The screen is right here.
This guy's killing me.
Thanks, David.
Okay. You're welcome. What I meant to say was the M12.
Killing me.
I'm trolling you guys.
I know.
Okay. So the M11 the files are more malleable. They do... it does perform better at higher ISO, and at base ISO of 64 versus the base ISO of 100 on the Q3, there is more dynamic range. You have 15 stops of dynamic range on the M11 and 14 stops on the Q3. It is apparent. And when you lift the shadows up on the M11 versus the Q3, they're cleaner on the M11 than they are on the Q3. So
Q3 is great. M11's better.
as far as just, you know, top tier image quality goes, the M11 is still top dog in the Leica lineup.
Yeah.
And sure, they're both 60 megapixel BSI sensors, but they're not the same 60 megapixel BSI sensor.
Yeah. Let me show this real quick. This is best case. So on the left, we've got Q3, f5.6. Oh, I don't want to show ISO 50. Sorry, hang on.
That's a pull. That's a pull.
Yeah, I know. That's not what I wanted to show.
Oh, which you should tell people.
Well, you tell them while I find the correct file.
Yeah,
to show.
Josh is finding the correct file. ISO 50 on the Q3 is not the base ISO. ISO 100 is base ISO. ISO 50 is a pull setting where you're sacrificing a stop to dynamic range.
So on the left,
to you, Josh.
Yes, Q3, base ISO, M11, base ISO. Here we can see they're both quite good in the center, but if I go to the corner, this is really what you're paying for with the 28 Summilux is incredible corner performance. Q3 is no slouch. Don't get me wrong, and these files are gorgeous. Again, this is best case scenario for both, but overall consistency of the 28 Summilux is better. Overall,
See that text on that tag there.
there we go.
Look at that. They're both amazing.
Yeah, they're both really good. So if you are spending a lot of time at base ISO, actually this is technically not base for the M11, base is 64. So I'm biasing the Q3 a little bit, but very close. M11 still has the edge, and every stop ISO you go up, the differences get more apparent. And of course, you're also getting a third stop extra aperture. Not a lot, but it all adds up when you start talking about a stop and a quarter stop and a third better ISO performance, another third stop of aperture. So again, don't think that the Q3, just because it's 60 megapixel BSI, is going to look exactly the same as the M11, because it does not, as David just pointed out. And just talking about Q2 monochrome, if we go to, let's go to...
I think if someone just saw this library view, they'd think you're insane.
Why is he photographing camera back so much? What is his problem? I just want to convert this Q3 25,000 file to black and white.
Do it.
I'm doing it. Well, all your windows are hiding. Here we go.
Yeah, so that people can see things.
And then we're going to go to compare it against, where are we here? Come on. 64, 25. Perfect.
Now,
Here we go. So we've got Q3 on the left, ISO 25,000, converted to black and white. Q2 monochrome on the right, also ISO 25,000. Let's take a look-see. Give it a second to load.
both of them. Oh, wait, the Q3 is loaded.
No.
No? Move it. No,
There.
there we go. Okay.
Look at the difference. I mean, Q2 monochrome. This is ISO 25,000, by the way, which is insanely high. I mean, look at the difference.
Yeah, the detail is
Q2 monochrome
noticeable.
is we can see a little bit of the classic lens profile banding here. I could take away that with that. I have to play. I would have to find. This is you can talk about this if you want.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like it's a secret.
Right. Right.
Go to David, but keep the zoomed in view. Yeah.
Hi. Okay. So what you're seeing on the Q2 monochrome, what Josh mentioned, is something that has been a pet peeve of ours for a while now, since the original Q. And if you scroll down, Josh.
Make sure I'm on the right file here.
Yeah.
I'm not.
You're not.
Hold on. Stand by, please.
Please stand by.
There we go.
Okay, so the Q, because it has a non-interchangeable lens, and Leica's wisdom decided, oh, well, we're just going to embed the lens profile into the DNG file, and it's going to automatically apply in Lightroom. How convenient will that be? And at low ISO, it is convenient, and it works pretty well. Obviously, you can see the performance is excellent. Here's the issue, though. At higher ISO, where you start getting noise, especially as you're pushing files, yeah, you can really see it.
I just put a 28 Summilux profile on.
Oh, okay. But you can see the banding that's happening here, and it changes as Josh is changing the lens profile. So now try like 50 Apo, yeah.
Oh, it's 50 f2. Look, it almost goes away.
Yeah, it almost goes away. So this is something that we've had to play with, and unfortunately, I can't point at the screen, but yes, there you go. Built-in lens profile applied, and there is no unchecking that. You cannot take it off.
Ooh, even worse.
If you take off the checkbox of enable profile corrections, it still says built-in lens profile applied.
So we should I wonder what the sweet spot is. We'll have to play around.
I found like 50 f2.
Nobody can accuse us of never saying anything bad about Leica now, because here we are.
This drives me.
It's fun. I mean, look, nothing's perfect. So, and this is ISO 25,000. So this is an extreme example.
Right. There's two ways to combat this. There you go. You see that pattern banding again. So no matter what lens profile you pick, if you're applying any lens profile at all, it's doing something to it. So for instance, when I'm processing high ISO M11 files, I disable the lens profile completely, and it gets rid of this 100%. If I'm doing the same thing,
perfect. I mean, it does go away with some noise reduction, but
okay. So that was my point.
Yeah.
So on the Q3 and the Q2 and the Q2 monochrome, and et cetera, dialing in a little bit of noise reduction and also bringing your shadows down, or using the curve and bringing your shadows down a bit on the curve. The combination of those things, as well as backing off on texture and clarity, will essentially eliminate that.
Yeah, you can come back to us, Jose.
But I would still really wish Leica, Adobe, if you're listening,
please
just give us
us
the little toggle to say, like, turn it off.
Yeah.
Just turn it off.
So let me summarize for a second. M11, 28 zoom lux is still the image quality king in this category of stuff. Still the low light king. Q2 monochrome comes second. The camera is mind-blowingly good. We have a whole show about it.
I think you need to revise. M11 monochrome is the low light.
Well, I'm talking about what I've showed here.
Yes.
Then the Q3 after that, and then the Q2 after that. So certainly the Q3 is a stop and a half better than the Q2, no question.
Sure.
Like, there's nothing, you're not giving up anything for those extra
No.
27% resolution. But if you have a Q2 monochrome and you say, well, I'm going to get a Q3 because the low light's better, don't. Because the Q2 monochrome is mind-blowingly good at high ISO and at low ISO. And if you have an M11 and a 28 zoom lux, don't get rid of that to get a Q3 for that reason. Obviously, the Q3 can make pictures that these other cameras cannot make. So even if these other cameras have an edge in certain areas, if you were trying to make the pictures David was showing in Paris, you could not have done it with that kind of consistency, repeatability, and ease with any of these other cameras. So I want to make sure that we're sort of putting things in context.
Yeah.
But again, we had a lot of questions about Q2 monochrome versus Q3. And if you spend any amount of time at 6400 or above, and if you value the look and malleability of a monochromatic non-color file,
Yes.
keep your Q2 monochrome.
I would also say, let's just pretend for a moment that I'm not a street photographer, because I'm not, and I'm a landscape photographer, which I am. So we're actually not pretending. This is straight talk, okay?
I'm freaking out right now.
I'm freaking out. So when I go do these things and test the cameras, it's because I'm trying to test the cameras. My primary thing that I do is landscape photography. The autofocus is meaningless for landscape photography. 9.9 times out of 10, I am using manual focus for landscape photography. I'm not generally using autofocus. I don't particularly care about the speed of autofocus for landscape photography. It's not important to me. The flip out screen, not important to me. A viewfinder, that's important, because I do like to have an accurate preview and I do like to be able to see details. But that being said, if I was just shooting landscape and I had no other use for the camera, I wasn't going to cities, which I am, traveling, and I had a Q2, I don't know that I would necessarily just be chomping at the bit to get a Q3, because the image quality difference, I'd say at lower ISO where I'm shooting landscape photography, landscape photos, between 47 megapixel and 60 megapixel, same lens, is not super appreciable. It's not night and day. I don't need the low light, and I don't need the autofocus, and I don't need the flip screen. So really, am I really hurting with the Q2? No. Will it be nice eventually to get a Q3 to replace my Q2? Sure. But like Josh was saying, if it makes the waiting any easier, you can think about it that way. Because the reality
Not gonna help, but okay.
But the reality is, the Q2 is incredibly capable as it is.
Yeah.
It already has kind of the best elements, and the Q3 is just that natural jump, evolution that, you shouldn't be upset you should be happy because Leica is continuing to
Wait,
innovate.
like I said, we're not like, look, everyone got so upset when they stopped making the CL.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you hope you have to want Leica to make things better and
Right.
improve. So,
Right. So
hope we should pause for a second. And,
Yeah.
since we're getting low on time,
Questions.
but questions. Yes. Jose, please.
I don't think there have been that
Oh,
many.
come on. I can scroll in here and find, what are you doing over there? What are you doing? You just
All right, let's see.
drink-
Does the
drinking?
Q3 image stabilization improve low light performance compared to the M11?
No, not really. Just because the M11 is so easy to handhold at longer speeds.
it's denser.
And
Yeah.
it's not, it helps, but it's not a game-changing difference.
Do you have any comments or concerns about using electronic flash with the Q3?
I haven't tried it, to be honest
tried
with you.
it.
That's the honest answer. Doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't, because the leaf shutter means you can sync at any speed. But David and I really don't use a lot of external flash. We've had our strobe days back in the day, but
Yeah.
that's a topic for another episode. But then we'd have to actually become flash photographers
Again.
before that.
Again.
Good question, just not something I can answer right now.
We've been scarred by too much studio experience.
Oh gosh, yeah.
S4 monochrome when?
I just feel like I brought that. in here. No.
Wait,
Okay.
you didn't have it here? Oh.
Yeah, right. Okay. Any
It's
real
like more
questions?
comments than questions, to be honest. But
More comments. That is how I would describe our viewers. More comments than questions. They don't need to hear from us. They just need to be heard, and I understand that. And I love that you guys are
that's good. That's good.
participating in
That's
some capacity because it's good for us. And just keep trolling me. I love it.
there was one earlier for these motion shots when you were showing the Paris photos. Is
Yeah.
it better to use autofocus continuous with eye face body, or
I like the
intelligent
IAF.
autofocus?
Yeah, I mentioned it then. I prefer the IAF, which is a little I and a big A and a big F. The intelligent autofocus is that hybrid. Again, if you missed that before, it's essentially single autofocus and the focus box turns green. And then as long as you're half pressing it and the focus is locked, if the subject moves relative to your position, which means you could move or the subject could move, that's laterally or forward and back or up and down in any direction, it will then switch to continuous and track the subject until you press the shutter. And I find that just to be the best. I don't love on continuous focus how it sort of just hunts all the time. I think, and somewhere in my brain, I'm thinking I'm going to get worse battery life if the camera's trying to focus continuously all the time. So I just use the IAF.
Just looking through the
Sure.
chat.
Does any other software besides Lightroom record the crop lines from the camera?
I mean, they're embedded in the D&G data, so.
Probably.
Oh, I haven't tried it.
We haven't tried
Someone
it.
I saw that question and I'm like very curious, but I don't even have
I
Capture
guess-
One on my computer, so.
So as I'm sitting here ranting and raving about the profile banding, I thought of two possible solutions. One is just use Capture One.
Yeah, because someone said I think you can get rid of the profile. So you and I need to try this.
But the second thing is, I don't think you can get rid of the profile. What I think would be necessary, and I feel like I need to talk to someone a lot smarter than I am, is to come up with an actual lens profile that you could associate, just like one of those manual profiles, except it has nothing in it. Like a blank profile that would basically assign nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, next time one of us goes to Germany, we
They're
can,
good about
we
nothing.
can bring it up. Any other questions we should answer, or are we?
David, if, in a quick summary, can you basically describe how the M11 sensor is not the same as the Q3 sensor, even though the specs look the same? Like.
Well, we don't know.
We don't know
not
for
not to take your question here. but
Right.
It's not like Leica is giving us the engineering drawings. We can only comment on the results.
Yes.
Yeah, just the
David.
fact that one you can interchange lenses and the other one it's a fix. So
Yeah, they have different ISO ranges, and the Q3 shoots video, and they're
They're different sensors.
we don't know what's different. We don't know if there are any similarities from a hardware standpoint. I don't think Leica. Again, what we're looking at is results.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. Like, I know we overuse car analogies a lot, but you can have a Porsche that's 500 horsepower, and a Corvette that's 500 horsepower. They're not the same engine. Like, they're both the same specs. Oh, well, they're both same displacement and same horsepower, and they must be the same. And then the cars don't drive the same. It's like, well, they're not the same engine. So Leica doesn't disclose who supplies the sensors for various cameras, but clearly they had a different design spec that they needed for the Q3 with the video capability, which the M11 doesn't have. Also, that hybrid autofocus detection is obviously not on the M11, it is on the Q3. So there's certain design elements that are required on that weren't required on the M11. And also that lens to flange, the focus to flange distance is different between an M and a Q. So I'm sure some engineers in Germany at Leica know the answer to this, and they're not saying.
We did talk about this, and someone just brought up the firmware question. It's a little weird right now because Q3 firmware 1.1 does exist on Leica Camera's website. We haven't been given like the official sort of memo green light from Leica USA
That it's public.
that it's public, and that's why it's not on Red Dot Forum yet. It's kind of a weird. So over the next few weeks, I suspect that will change. Some people have been out of the office at Leica and such. So there is on Leica's website right now, at least in the US, you can download 1.1, and that's what both these cameras have so far. I mean, I shot with it all day.
Fine.
Worked perfectly. I had a few freezes on 1.0, which were resolved with 1.1.
Yes. And there is a continuing bug on 1.0 and 1.1 that we should talk about that was actually brought to our attention. I didn't particularly notice it just because I always am using exposure compensation, but if you photograph something that's overwhelmingly a dark background with a dark subject, and you half press, the exposure preview is darker than the image that results from the camera in all modes. When we compared that against Q2 and compared it against an SL2 and an M11 in live view, all the exposure previews match the actual exposure. So the Q3 is off by about a stop in terms of giving you a brighter exposure than what it's previewing. That's in PASM exposure preview or PAS, again, in aperture priority and program, everything. So it's something that we passed on that information to Leica, and they've been pretty good.
Yeah, I mean if you look at, just to jump in, SL2, Q2, M11, M10R, et cetera, they've been really dedicated to consistently doing firmware updates across the board with both bug fixes and feature improvements. Q3 has been out a month. So let's give it some time. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, we admit there's certainly the occasional weirdness, but, we know from Leica's history that they're pretty dedicated to improvements and enhancements through firmware. So
for sure.
Something we didn't talk about is the Leica Photos app.
Well, we're going to do a whole show on the Photos app at some point in the future of the world. But yes, the short version is the Q3 has new tech inside that makes it connect way faster to the Photos app than ever before, either wired or wirelessly. It's a game-changing difference, and we will cover that.
Oh, right, because of
Leica looks.
Well, that's inside also, and I'll just say it has MIMO beamforming technology.
The old MIMO. I think we need to be done because it's 10 o'clock, and I have a long drive tomorrow.
Is it 10 o'clock?
Yes.
That's 9.
That's close enough.
9:57. All right.
We may end up doing more Q3 stuff. I think our next show has got to be Ask Us Anything, so I assume 2/3 of those questions will be,
oh my God,
where's my Q3? Where's the SL3? Where's the Q3 monochrome? Where's the M12? I'm just giving you guys a hard time. It's okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any shirts that aren't plaid, etc.?
No, I don't think I do.
So yeah, I hope that my ranting wasn't too intimidating for all of you people watching. I mean, we want to get everyone everything they want. Honestly, if Leica would just build another factory, ideally like in South Miami, it'd be great.
Coral
We could
Gables,
drove over there,
In Hialeah.
get a little cart, but unfortunately they're far away. And if you've been to the factory at Wetzlar, as David and I both have, and Adam just was, and you see them working on the stuff, you certainly realize.
Oh, I should give a shout out because we always give shout outs.
Shout out,
LSI, Leica Society International, is having their annual meeting in Wetzlar, Germany at the mothership.
And I should be there.
And Josh should be there, but I think I'm going to be taking pictures outside somewhere with some people who are happy about taking pictures outside.
All right, I love it.
But it's going to be cool. If you've never been to the factory, there would be an awesome opportunity to do so. You should go to the website, which is, did they change it?
Just Google LSI.
Google Leica Society.
There we go.
And you can find their Germany trip, which you can sign up for, and they're probably going to have amazing speakers.
Yeah.
And you can ask them why you don't have a Q3 yet.
Jeez.
That'd be great.
Can you please sign us off?
Don't ask them.
Thank you.
And I would say if you're in Miami, you want to pass by the store, we do have a Q3 on demo, and we encourage you to, check it out, play with it, bring an SD card, memory card, and just,
We also have a Q2 and a Q2 monochrome on demo as well. So if you want to compare them, you can do that as well.
You can. Anything you want. Unless it's buying a Q3. You can't do that.
Wow.
Not yet.
Or
Not
that's
yet.
pretty monochrome.
Too soon,
In
Josh.
6 months, when everyone has their cameras, they're going to look back at the show and go,
I know, this isn't going to
that's
age
good.
well. It's going to be, they're like, what do you mean it's so hard to get?
All right, sign us off, David. This was
All
fun.
right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Josh rant and rave and me
Nothing
talk
new.
about some technical stuff. It's been fun. Sorry about the delay in getting the Q3 show going, but I actually had to go and use it, and Josh had to test it. And we took a couple trips in between, so we're back here. When is our next show, Josh?
We're about a month from now. It's like July 29th.
Okay, in about a month.
For now.
For now, we might move
Yeah,
that
July
up.
29th is our next show. I mean, I've got some travel coming up, so we'll see. But as of right now, we're looking at the end of July, so a month from now.
Okay.
If you can wait that long.
If you can wait that long. If you aren't already, get subscribed to Red Dot Forum on Red Dot Forum on YouTube. You can click the little subscribe button. Make sure you click that notification bell so you know when we post new content or go live like this. You can also subscribe to the Leica Store Miami email newsletter. There's a link in the description down below. That way, also, even before the show goes on, usually a few days before, we send out an email saying what the topic is and asking for questions. So you can send your questions in advance, and we'll be able to answer them on air, as we usually do. Check out red.forum.com for the latest Leica news, reviews, updates, more. If you haven't seen it already, you should check out my M11 monochrome review, which took a lot of work and a lot of pictures. So check that out. I know this is about Q3, which is coming sometime in the future.
Yes.
Also, I'll be working on a Q3 review this in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that as well. And I think that's it, right?
We'll see you next
video,
time.
like the video, and go out and take pictures of something with cameras because that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Big thanks to Josh. Thanks to Jose. Thanks to you guys for watching, and have a great rest of the weekend. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.